And I'm not going to, explicitly talk about what I said in that video, but I wanted to I pointed something out in that video that you remember when, this guy was out there running his campaign before he becomes president. And then he was, and then they wanted to, get him out of the way with the shooting. And then the shooting went, very close to his ear, or he hit his ear. I made a comment that all of that was staged, right? It was sending him a message that, because think about it, snipers, do you think snipers just miss like that? All of that was staged, right? It was a way of telling him, we got you anytime we want to. So, that is when he realized what he got himself into. He took money from Israel, a lot of it. Israel made him president, basically, right? And by them sending that, it was them sending the message, because the guy who did that thing is an extremely professional. It was probably a guy from the Mossad or CIA, right? And they purposely did that to let him know that anytime we want to get you, we will get you. So you will have to, if you ever decide you're not going to cooperate after taking our money, this is what's going to happen to you. So that is the answer of what you just asked me now. I made a video saying every single time that this guy traveled to the White House, it is because he wants war. We saw him going to the White House, right? And after, and then saying whatever he said. Donald Trump is everybody says that Jeffrey Sachs, listen to Jeffrey Sachs. Everybody knows he's under the control of, the Zionists. Basically, is nothing new there. I mean, with this conflict, it is a major confirmation that the type of money he received and the type of information that is in the Epstein file will be, if it come out, the way that, these Israel, because they're the one in control of the Epstein file, the way that they keep, sending these things out, if it comes out, Donald Trump is choosing to, destroy the country, the world, than for him to face whatever Israel has for him, right? And so somewhere, somehow, he feels like, maybe if Iran, since we saw Iran in 12 days conflict, if maybe Iran can do something major in Israel, that's the only way that Netanyahu is not going to come back to the White House again. When he's going to do, that's the only way, because there's nothing else, right? Maybe he's saying to himself, okay, let's go to this thing and maybe, Iran can hit something really important, maybe even hit, this Netanyahu guy, right? That way that way we can burn all the Epstein file, because Netanyahu has the Epstein file and keep threatening everybody with it. Maybe Iran, maybe they are there like, they give intelligence to Iran, like, please hit this Netanyahu guy so we can get out, right? So who knows what he's doing? But in reality, we know that Israel controls the United States. Everybody knows that. This is the reason why, right? President like Obama, Biden, the Democrats, this is the reason why they don't align with Israel a lot of time, because they know what Israel wants. And what Israel did is to wait to see the most, I don't want to use a big word, but the most unintelligent guy who is ready to sacrifice his own country, who doesn't understand how geopolitics works, and to come out and just, do things. And that's what they got. They got, Trump, who is unstable. That's the best I can say about him. And so he's unstable, he's corrupt. And so it's easy for you to go to him and say, look, go on there and bomb over here. We gave you money for it. Go and do what you got to do. Hey, remember, you're 80-some years old, right? What else can you do in life, right? And you only have one turn. That's it. You don't have much more to do. You can sacrifice all those people. What is the worst they can do, right? There's nothing, what's the worst? And so what you see basically is a situation where the US government is extremely corrupt. It has always been extremely corrupt. Every single time you take a government, instead of them to work for the people, they work for the 1%, you're going to get things like that. Every single time you elect someone, depending on where they got the money from, you're basically going to find yourself in a situation where, it's disastrous. You can sacrifice a whole country for it. So I wouldn't. So is very sad. But the U.S. government is not a real government. Is a corporation. You can call it that way. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So I don't want to. They want Donald Trump to get to a position where it can come back to them. And on a level, because right now Donald Trump is up there, here. You know what I mean? None of them is saying anything. The only country I heard in the last hour apparently not joined, but they said they were shooting drones down somewhere across one of their air base or military base was the UK. But everybody else have left Donald Trump to be on his own to deal with this, because they want him to be weakened, because the power is, I think they believe the power is gone too much in his head, and they want him to pipe down low. Sam, what do you think? Do you think that is the case we were saying, or do you think the EU is just maybe playing a two-faced game and they're going behind?
Oh no, the Europeans are useless. I mean, why do you think the Europeans you can take whatever they say seriously? The only time that the Europeans will try to put their foot down is when Trump pushed them a little bit on Greenland. And you saw that President Trump, at least Trump is honest. He showed the conversation between him and Macron. He said, yeah, Macron is running his mouth, and he wore his eyeglass to the World Economic Forum. He said, yeah, this is a message from Macron. He told me, let's gang up together and do something in Iran, but leave Greenland alone. Yeah, so the Europeans are hypocrites. And again, I did a video on this. I said, this is the end of international law. This is the end of international institutions as we see them today. Because this whole idea that we in Africa and weak countries around the world should conform with international laws and standards and principles and norms and conventions, and it doesn't apply to powerful countries like Iran, like Israel and America. And the Europeans have, because they claim to be this moral, arbiter, that if anything goes wrong, they're in Ukraine, they are telling the whole world, people like me in Nigeria, to do vigil and cry for Ukraine. But on the other hand, when there's a destruction of Palestine, the Europeans don't see it. In fact, during I think it was the attack, Venezuela, the US, removing the Venezuelan president, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said, yeah, he has not really seen the video yet, so he can't comment on it.
He can't comment.
Yeah, President Trump himself said, yeah, I went there and kidnapped him. And the UK said, we have not seen the video yet. So these guys, they don't have any real power. So this is the nature of international politics, and morality to them is not important. So the Europeans, I don't take them seriously anymore. Right now, most of them are running to China to do economic deals because of the sanctions and some of the tariff that America is levying on them. So the Europeans, even right now in terms of their military strength, the UK is living on old glory. And they're depending on their partnership with America for technology, for fifth generation fighters and so on. The only country today in Europe that is coming up with something in terms of fighter jets is maybe France and to some extent Germany. France is coming up with the Rafale, the Germans are making. So the Europeans have nothing left. Even with satellites, they have to depend on the United States. They have their own satellite, but its junk is not working. So only two countries, I think three of them have good satellites in space now, which is America and China. China having the Baidu, and I think the first time I was on your panel, I spoke about the Yinghe incident I think in 1993, where they switched off the GPS to Chinese vessel that was on road to Europe. So the Europeans don't have anything to say. The last thing I want, again, for me, I know that the Europeans, when it comes to international politics, they are the ones that have created these institutions more or less, and then more so America after the Second World War. But outside the confines of that institutions and the bureaucracy of it and the legality of things, they don't have real power to back up, those institutions that they have set up. And the United States of America, we know, is above the United Nations. And Israel as well is punching above its weight. Nobody cares anymore. So it's left for you and I now to depend on the comments or statements from the Europeans. You and I, Nigeria, Guinea, Mali, all these countries, we are the ones that will follow strictly the tenets of the United Nations. It's not made for powerful nations. Only weak nations follow international law.
Yeah, thank you. What do you think, Alex, with the EU?
I was going to say the same thing, that Europe is useless. I mean, what else is there? Europe, they call themselves the old continent, right? And that's what they are. They are irrelevant, right? So you basically see, and the thing with them is this: is that they are trying to find a voice without a voice, right? So check this out. All of them came out. Macron came out and say, we they don't agree with. They didn't say it that way, but they're saying that this decision of attacking Iran is going to bring a whole lot of repercussion, right? But and then they finish by saying Iran needs to negotiate with the United States. Somebody, there's some when you listen to someone like that, is that a brain talking? That's somebody who doesn't have a brain that speak this way, because you are in a situation where you saw how Iran was negotiating with Donald Trump. Before that, you saw Iran signing the nuclear agreement with Obama at first. Iran has always negotiated. But and then you have Macron coming out and say, he doesn't want to say, we disagree with the United States. We condemn, right? We condemn the United States attack. They would never say anything like that. He only said it's going to bring some type of consequences, right? But when it comes to Iran, he said Iran needs to sit down and negotiate with the United States. That's what they were doing before the United States hit them in June with Israel and then hit them again this time. So when you listen to someone like, are you going to give, some type of consideration to people like that? No, you're not, right? No, because you're gonna look at him like this guy is this guy has a brain in what he's talking about. Then you go to Keir Starmer, same thing. Keir Starmer said we were not part of the decision and all of that. But do you think that Keir Starmer is going to come out and say, "Oh, we condemn the United States for it"? No. And then Keir Starmer is saying that Iran should not bomb or retaliate. Oh, so Iran should allow others, the United States, to bomb them and not respond? When you listen to people like that, are you going to give them some type of consideration? These people are useless. There's nothing that they have. They're puppets. They were under the umbrella of the United States. Now Donald Trump has kicked them out of that umbrella. They're now, rushing to China, hoping that China can put them. Now keep in mind, and these are the things we're talking about. Now keep in mind that these are the same people who agree that China is helping Russia. So they know very well that by running to China, they're continuing to invest the money that eventually is going to be funding into buying Russian oil and gas, which will then fund the Ukraine conflict. They know all of that. But do you think they care? No. They are looking for another master, puppet master, that they can get under their umbrella again, right? So they can try to save themselves. They don't care about Ukraine. They don't care about, anything. They are basically useless. There's nothing good they bring to the table. We can move on in life without them. And that's the thing, right? Nobody is listening and paying attention. And I'm talking about the leadership, right? I'm talking about leadership. I'm not talking about the population itself, but I'm talking about the EU, which is the European Union, right? And then you add the UK that left the European Union, but they're all there, right? And so you're seeing a situation where they don't have anything good to say because they're still, puppets of the United States. They can never condemn the United States. They can never put sanction on Israel, but yet they're going to tell you that Russia is wrong when Israel is doing worse than what Russia, they claim that Russia is doing. So how can you consider people like that as regular human beings? Seriously.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, we're going to round up with, we're going to round up with Russia, Iran, and